witches were harmed in the making of this episode. Human beings, just like you and me, with hopes, dreams, and feelings, were horribly and slowly tortured to death by psychopaths claiming some silent, invisible sky wizard told them to do it.
Woe to you of earth and sea.
Welcome to Satan is My Superhero, a show for atheists, scoffers, heathens, and unbelievers. I'm your host, Judas Falling. In this episode, we will finally get to the witches of Shakespeare. Because, of course, let us not forget, it is...
Spooky Month Special.
It's witches, bitches!
I wish I could believe you.
Let's begin with their entrance into the play.
For anyone who hasn't heard the last episode, the play is Macbeth. Other than that, the last episode has no information required for this episode, and no witches or bitches. It was infuriating.
They are, in fact, the very first characters to appear on stage. Act 1, Scene 1, a desert place. The trio speak in a different rhythm to everyone else
In the play.
This allows their vocal performance to sell their
Otherworldliness.
When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain?
When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won.
That will be ere the set of sun.
They leave this little opening scene with the chant.
Fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy air.
And here is the crux of what and who they are in this play.
Fair is foul and foul is fair.
Described by Shakespeare as wayward sisters in the first folio. Refer to my excellent description of what the first folio is in the last episode.
Don't. It will drive you f***ing insane.
These ladies are from the Upside Down. They're from Bizarro World. They come from a place where evil is good and good is evil.
So they're from Florida, then.
Despite all the evidence I provided in the last episode, I can still legitimately argue these wayward sisters are witches. Here's exactly how Banquo describes the ladies the very first time he sees them, in the third scene of the first act.
What are these, so withered and so wild in their attire, that look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet are on it? Live you? Or are you aught that man may question?
He then ends his description with,
You should be woman, and yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so.
withered in wild attire and facial hair.
It's witches, bitches!
A common stereotype of witches was to have a beard or a whiskered chin. The basis of this speaks volumes about the very origin of the witch myth.
Predominantly, but not exclusively.
Witches were no more supernatural than elderly women who had outlived their usefulness to the community.
Now, as you know, it was a bad harvest and we're headed into an unusually harsh winter. Tough decisions need to be made. What's the oldest woman you would have sex with?
What?
Like, are we talking Helen Mirren? Or can you go even older? I'm thinking like the old lady just outside of town with all the prime farmland. You know the one. Undulating fertile pastures with easy access to the main road and a river running through it.
I don't see the relevance of this question.
I'm hearing a no to the old lady with the farm.
So what do these wayward sisters say? Well, before Macbeth and Banquo enter, they tell the audience of the day they've had doing all sorts of witchy stuff. For example, they've been...
Killing swine.
This was a common charge against community members targeted for a witchcraft accusation.
One of my swine has died.
Take the old lady's farm. I mean, burn the witch.
Burn the witch!
Yeah, that's it. Burn the witch, and then we'll figure out what to do with her property afterwards. No biggie.
The wayward sisters then describe cursing a poor sea captain whose wife had offended them. The captain is about to be cast upon a chaotic storm and among other catastrophes.
Sleep shall neither night nor day.
Macbeth is about to also be thrown upon a chaotic storm, and later, while lamenting the choices he has made, will tell Lady Macbeth,
Methought I heard a voice cry, sleep no more.
Macbeth does murder sleep.
Just gotta sleep for Christ's sake! He doesn't know why his baby can't sleep now!
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. After foreshadowing Macbeth's fate with the story of the sea captain,
Foreshadowing.
the wayward sisters finally meet Macbeth and his good friend Banquo. This is where we hear Banquo's description I gave you earlier.
So withered and so wild.
They then tell Macbeth and Banquo a bunch of predictions. Most importantly, they prophesize Macbeth will become King of the Scots. And then they vanish.
Yo, where my witches at?
Only moments later, new characters arrive in the scene to inform Macbeth the first of the wayward sisters' prophecies has already come true. To which Banquo retorts,
What? Can the devil speak true?
In my experience, not very often.
Rude? Fair, but rude.
The next time we see the wayward sisters is in a scene thought to have been added by later writers and not Shakespearean.
Told you, I'm an expert.
In this scene, we meet Hecate, who is presumably the head witch and is angry with the wayward sisters for talking to Macbeth. When or why this scene was added is not known.
I've written a new scene for Hecate. I just feel the character hasn't been properly fleshed out. And, let's face it, the play really is about Hecate, am I right?
No, it's about Macbeth. But anyway, I'll make sure the actor gets a copy of the new scene.
Oh, you know what? This is a weird coincidence, but I am the actor playing Hecate, which didn't even occur to me while I was writing the scene. So yeah.
So shall I give you this then?
Oh, what is it?
The new scene for...
Away with you! I must rehearse this brilliant new scene I've only just been handed. Oh, the life of an actor. They just drop new scenes on you at the last minute, am I right?
Then the last time we see the wayward sisters, we get...
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn, cauldron bubble.
And the classic...
By the pricking of my thumb, something wicked this way comes.
Then, quite frankly, some very racist magical incantations, followed by Macbeth receiving his final batch of vague, trickily worded prophecies, all designed to subdue his anxiety while further lead him to ruin.
Imagine Macbeth being counselled by Steve Bannon.
That MAGA hat's wearing you.
Most of the music in this episode was provided by the Genuine Hoots of Joy. If you want to hear more from the band, check us out at satanismysuperhero.com or be a bigot and vote for Trump. I just don't care.
Now, while we mentioned him in passing in the first act, it's time to introduce this play's unseen character.
It's not the first folio, is it?
Back when Elizabeth I confidently sat on the English throne, masterfully playing four-dimensional chess in the succession game, a young King James VI of Scotland was presiding over witch trials and writing a book on witchcraft titled
Demonology in Form of a Dialogue, divided into 3 books, by the High and Mighty Prince James and Company.
6 years later, it turns out Bessie had not been playing four-dimensional chess with the succession game. She had, in fact, simply been ignoring it because she did not care and she would be dead.
Oh, I know how this game is played, 16th century England. I name a male heir, and minutes later you decide I'm no longer useful.
Equits.
Well, now you can suck on my long, hairy, ginger front bottom, roll off curtains, min, bajing, foo clunge peanut, muff doo-dah, wound, lady garden, pole.
King James wins Spin the Crown and becomes Shakespeare's employer. 2 years after that, a nefarious plot to assassinate the king and most of his ministers using a massive amount of gunpowder is uncovered.
I got a bomb.
The very next year, Shakespeare premieres Macbeth, a tale of woe and destruction for the unjust usurper assassin who would be king. Some scholars have speculated Macbeth is written for James.
Oh, what a brown nose.
Shakespeare had the brownest nose in London, and I'm talking about a time when the Thames was an open sewer.
So you said King James wrote a book about witchcraft?
Yes, I did. Thank you for asking.
You told me to.
The man who would one day commission the most important English translation of the Christian Bible and govern all the British Isles spent his youth writing a 22,000-word book about witches. witches.
So much nonsense.
I know exactly what you're thinking.
Unlikely.
What a waste of intellect. Just a few pages into James's book, you quickly realise if he hadn't been writing this gobbledygook, he would just be pulling the wings off flies instead.
I've turned it into a walk. You might need some time with that one.
According to James's book, fairies, sprites, nymphs, wizards and witches are all the same thing. They're all just demons in league with Satan.
Worship Satan, of course.
James very definitely believes witchcraft is real and must be defeated. In fact, his whole book's mission statement could be summed up as trying to desperately prove witches are real. It is claimed he wrote this in response to some skeptical pamphlets being published at the time, poo-pooing witchcraft as nonsense made up by the church.
Christians are always the bad guys.
James was in a 16th century Twitter fight, and if he were alive today, he would be that boomer grandparent you don't let near the kids anymore.
Mum, Granddad's yelling about the colours and the gays again.
Just put Alex Jones on the tablet for him. That'll quiet him down.
James gets his proof
Equates.
of the existence of witchcraft directly from Scripture. Firstly, he points out Yahweh has a law against witchcraft.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
And Yahweh wouldn't waste his time outlawing something that doesn't exist. As James writes,
The law of God speaks nothing in vain, neither doth it lay curses or enjoin punishments upon shadows, condemning that to be ill, which is not in essence or being as we call it.
So that's pretty incontrovertible circular reasoning right there.
Dumbass.
James also talks about the magicians who trumped Yahweh's magic when Moses was trying to prove the power of his God to the Pharaoh.
Quick question, Moses. Have you been selling this religion of yours to morons and children?
Exclusively, Pharaoh.
You understand that I'm neither of those things, right?
Got your nose?
No, you don't. That's your thumb.
I'll show myself out.
King Jimmy Boy then quotes the book of Samuel.
For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft.
To which James adds,
To compare to a thing that were not, it were too absurd.
I agree. It's
Too absurd.
It's almost like the whole thing is made up.
Chickhead.
James not only believes witchcraft exists, but all non-Christian behaviour is witchcraft.
Knitting,
Witchcraft.
casseroles,
Witchcraft.
alpaca farms,
Witchcraft.
romantic love between men.
Witchcraft.
You hesitated on that one.
No, I didn't.
James was not only raising awareness, he wanted to be on the front lines leading the war against Satan. His book opens with,
The fearful abounding at this time in this country of these detestable slaves of the devil, the witches or enchanters, hath moved me, beloved reader, to dispatch in post this following treatise of mine.
and
Such assaults of Satan are most certainly practised, and that the instruments thereof merits most severely to be punished.
yes, James is very hot to punish witches.
Witches be crazy.
Are you sure it's the witches?
Way back in 1590, Anne of Denmark set sail to marry young King James in Scotland. Stormy weather forced the Queen to stop over in Norway. James then gallantly got on his own boat and went and met her in Oslo.
I think this place is a shithole, and I'm from Scotland.
One might have blamed this inconvenience on the Danish bureaucrats who organised the route and inadequate class of vessel used. But such a one would be a fool. No, the Danish bureaucrats involved quickly came to the conclusion it was witchcraft and 2 women were burned at the stake.
Can anyone else smell something burning? Oh, it's me, isn't it? Great.
By this time, James was safely back in Scotland with his bride. But a serious case of FOMO set in and he decided he might root out some local witches, who also probably cursed Anne's voyage with bad weather in the North Sea.
Sire, don't you suppose these storms might merely be produced by the natural weather patterns of the turbulent North Sea?
Let's suppose for a minute you are correct. Storms at sea are caused by natural weather patterns. Who would we punish?
Why do we have to punish anyone?
Oh, that's hilarious. That's the funniest thing I've heard all week. You've really made my day. Now, light the fire.
James then presided over what would be known as the North Berwick witch trials. They lasted 2 years. Between 70 and 200 people were arrested, accused of witchcraft, and tortured.
It's not all about the torturing. I also enjoy... Well, the torturing is a big part of it.
We don't actually know how many alleged witches were executed. As a general rule, when you know you're doing the wrong thing, you tend to not keep a record of it. It's one of the ways you can tell you're on the wrong side of history.
Russian bots QAnon. That MAGA hat's wearing you. Culture was fake news. That MAGA hat's wearing you.
On that we don't pay tax. That MAGA hat's wearing you. That MAGA hat's wearing you. That MAGA hat's wearing you.
The rich don't pay tax.
At the end of the day, James was obsessed with witches. He saw witches everywhere. The Wayward Sisters would have been witches in James's eyes, and the play, if not necessarily written for him, was certainly written with him in mind.
Thrice the blinded cat hath mewed.
Thrice and once the hedge pig whined.
Harpier cries, 'tis time, 'tis time.
Time to sign up at Patreon and support the show today.
Go to SatanisMySuperhero.com and follow the links, okay?
Don't make us curse your house.
Or turn you into a mouse.
A mouse?
It's the only thing that rhymes with house.
Klaus rhymes with house. There's also louse, the singular of lice.
This is why you don't get the witchy voice.
So what have we learned? Whether they be weird sisters of classical mythology, witches or wayward sisters of Shakespeare's own concoction, these three foul temptresses represent the devil himself.
Can the devil speak true?
In the 21st century, we have a very Disney-fied idea of what a witch is. Modern versions of traditional fairy tales redact the devil altogether. But in 16th century Europe, witch exclusively and emphatically meant working for Satan.
My lord, high prince of darkness, warrior king, leader of a horde of demons, brave and powerful enough to challenge the almighty creator God of the entire universe himself. I present to you our latest superweapon in our ongoing battle with the legions of terrifying angels that seek our extermination.
What is this?
It's a division of witches from Earth.
It looks like a bunch of little old ladies.
I'll show myself out.
Witch trials were a weapon Christians used against pagans, Jews, and anyone who was other. Even if Shakespeare's wayward sisters are the fates from mythology, that's still in keeping with what a witch might be in Shakespeare's day. They're pagan demons and proxies for the devil.
For interfering with the church's monopoly on pretending to have a connection to the supernatural world, this court sentences you to death by burning. Any last words?
I was just playing Tooth Fairy for my children.
We finished the last episode with a quote from arguably Western civilization's most influential writer. So this episode will do the complete opposite of that and end with a quote from King James.
That douche.
James finishes his delusional little witchcraft book with this admission. Quote.
The great wickedness of people on the one part procures this horrible defection whereby God justly punishes sin by a greater iniquity.
That's right. A man who burned people at the stake because the North Sea got a bit choppy slept just fine at night because he decided his God
Justly punishes sin by a greater iniquity.
And that's why Satan is my superhero. If you've enjoyed this episode, rate, review, subscribe, you know the deal. But please do go check out the website satanismysuperhero.com, where you will find links to the merch store, our Patreon page, and all our social medias.
So will the church take over putting money under my kids' pillows when they go through the trauma of losing a tooth?
The church giving money away. Oh, you're hilarious. That's the funniest thing I've heard all week. That's really made my day. Now, light the fire.